James ducked behind a column, his heart pounding. He was just a human student. No armor, no weapon, no training. What could he do here? But then he remembered Solara's voice. "I choose to be your friend." That was enough. James grabbed a fallen guard's staff, a heavy weapon far too large for his strength. Yet he carried it anyway, forcing his legs forward. His mind screamed at him to run, but his heart shouted louder, "Protect her." He burst into the upper hall just in time to see Solara surrounded. 3 intruders had broken through the guards and cornered her against the wall. She stood tall, defiant, refusing to show fear. But James could see it in her trembling hands. "Step away from her," James shouted. His voice cracked, but it carried through the hall. The intruders turned. Their silver masks gleamed, hiding their faces. One of them laughed. "The human again? How amusing. Do you truly think you can stop us?" James gripped the staff tighter. His arm shook, but he forced himself to stand firm. "You'll have to go through me first." They moved fast. Too fast. One lunged at him, blade flashing. James swung, wildly, barely blocking the strike. The impact jolted his entire body, nearly knocking the staff from his hands. He stumbled back, gasping, but he did not fall. Again and again the intruder struck, each blow harder than the last. James blocked, dodged, and staggered. His arms screamed in pain, his chest burned, but his eyes never left Solara. Finally, the intruder knocked the staff from his grip. James fell to his knees, unarmed, helpless. The cloaked figure raised a glowing blade, ready to end him. "James!" Solara cried out. And in that moment, something inside him refused to die. James reached for the only weapon left, his own body. With a desperate roar, he lunged forward, tackling the intruder with all his strength. They crashed to the ground, the blade skittering away. James's fists struck again and again, fueled not by skill, but by sheer will. The other intruders moved toward him, but Solara acted. Power blazed from her hands, a shimmering light of royal bloodline, an ancient force humans could barely understand. Energy crackled through the hall, forcing the attackers back. Together, James and Solara drove them off. The intruders vanished, into smoke, retreating as guards finally arrived. Silence fell. James collapsed to the floor, his body shaking, his knuckles bruised and bleeding. Solara rushed to his side, kneeling beside him. "Why?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "Why do you keep risking everything for me? You could have died." James looked at her through heavy breaths. "Because no one else sees you the way I do. Not as a crown, not as a weapon. Just as Solara. And I won't let anyone take you away." Her eyes filled with tears. Not of sorrow, but of something deeper. She touched his hand gently, her silver eyes glowing in the flicker of fading flames. "You are more than a student," she whispered. "You are my courage." And in that moment, though the academy still smoldered and danger still lurked beyond the stars, James felt something stronger than fear. For the first time in his life, he felt like he belonged, not just to Earth, but to someone far greater. The academy never felt the same after the attack. Scorched walls were patched, shattered glass was replaced, and guards patrolled every hallway. But beneath the surface, fear lingered. Students whispered about the night. Intruders stormed the halls. Many avoided James now, not out of disdain, but out of awe and uncertainty. The human student who had stood against assassins was no longer seen as fragile. He was seen as something unusual, something unsettling. James did not care about whispers anymore. His body still ached from the fight, his hands still bore bruises, but none of that mattered. What mattered was that Solara was alive. The Empress herself visited the academy soon after. She was tall and radiant, her silver eyes sharper than her daughter's. When she entered the chamber where James waited, he felt small again, like a child standing before a storm. "You are the human," she said, her voice deep and commanding. "The one who risked his life for my daughter." James bowed awkwardly. "Yes, Your Majesty, I only did what I thought was right." The Empress studied him for a long moment. Then, to his surprise, her gaze softened. Many warriors of our empire would not have done the same. You are untrained, unarmed, yet you stood when others might have fled. For that you have my respect. James's chest tightened. Respect from an empress? He never thought he would hear such words in his life. When the Empress left, Solara remained behind. She sat beside James, her shoulders relaxed for the first time in days. My mother does not give her respect easily, Solara said quietly. You have earned more than you know. James shook his head. I'm no hero, Solara. I was terrified. I thought I would die. She touched his hand gently. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is standing even when fear tells you to fall. That is why you matter, not just to me, but perhaps to my people. Her words warmed him, yet James knew the danger had not ended. The intruders had failed. Once, but they would try again. And each day the tension in the empire grew. Rumors spread of rebellions, of noble houses plotting against the Empress. Through it all, James stayed at Solara's side. He studied when she studied, walked when she walked, and sometimes simply sat with her in silence. Slowly, her loneliness began to fade. One evening, as they stood in the academy garden, Solara spoke with a voice filled with emotion. All my life, James, I have been surrounded by people who want something from me. Power, favor, or protection. You are the first who has stood with me expecting nothing. Do you know what that means? James looked into her silver eyes, unsure how to answer. It means, she continued, her voice trembling slightly, that you are no longer just my friend. You are my family. The word struck James harder than any blade. Family. He thought of his mother and father back on Earth so far away. He thought of the nights he lay awake, missing their voices. And now in this alien world he had been given something he never expected. A family beyond the stars. He swallowed hard, his voice thick. Solara, I don't know if I deserve that. But if you see me as family, then I'll be family. Always. Her hand slipped into his, gentle but firm. And for a moment the galaxy felt less vast, less lonely. But peace never lasted long. 2 nights later, another message reached the academy. A threat carved into steel, delivered directly to the guards. The princess cannot be protected forever. The human will fall first. When James read the words, a shiver ran through him. Whoever hunted Solara now knew his name. They saw him not as a weak outsider, but as a shield. And they intended to break him to reach her. Solara's face paled when she saw the threat. She turned to him, her eyes filled with fear not for herself, but for him. James, she whispered. They will not stop until one of us is gone. James's hands clenched into fists. He had never felt strong, never felt powerful. But looking at her now, he knew one thing with absolute certainty. They'll have to go through me first. And as the stars burned above them, James felt the weight of his promise settle deeper into his heart. He was no longer just a student. He was no longer just a friend. He was her family, and he would fight for her, no matter what the galaxy threw at them. The night of the final attack came without warning. The academy was quiet, wrapped in the silver glow of the twin moons. Students slept in their quarters, unaware that shadows were already moving across the walls. James had been restless, unable to sleep. Something gnawed at his chest, a whisper of danger in the air. And then he heard it. The distant crash of steel, the cry of guards. The attack had begun. James grabbed the nearest weapon he could find, a training blade left in the corner of his room, and ran. His legs burned, but his heart beat with only one thought. Solara. He found her in the grand hall. The crystal ceiling above was shattered, fragments glowing on the floor. Solara stood surrounded by her guards, her silver eyes fierce. Cloaked, assassins pressed in from every side. Their weapons flashed in deadly arcs, their voices hissing with hatred. This ends tonight, princess, one spat. The empire will not fall to peace. It will rise in fire. James didn't hesitate. He charged forward, his blade clumsy but desperate. He threw himself into the fight, blocking a strike meant for Solara. Pain jolted through his arms, but he stood firm. The battle was chaos. Guards fell, assassins pressed harder, and James fought, with every ounce of strength he had. He was slower, weaker, but he refused to give ground. Every time he staggered, he rose again. Every time fear screamed in his mind, he silenced it with one truth: I will protect her. At one point, an assassin lunged straight for Solara. James didn't think. He simply moved. He pushed her aside and took the blow across his shoulder. White-hot pain exploded through him, but he clenched his teeth and swung back, knocking the attacker to the ground. "James!" Solara cried, rushing to his side. Blood stained his shirt, but he forced a smile. "I'm fine," he gasped. "Stay behind me." But Solara's hands glowed with her inherited power. She stepped forward, standing at his side instead of behind him. "No, we stand together." Energy burst from her palms, blinding the hall in silver light. The assassins faltered under her fury. Yet still they came, relentless. James felt his strength fading. His arms were heavy, his vision blurred. He could not hold on much longer. Then he heard Solara's voice, steady and unshaken. "James, look at me." He turned, their eyes meeting in the storm of battle. "You are not alone," she whispered. But James did not care anymore. Something had changed that night. When he stood in front of those cloaked figures, he realized that fear did not control him. His body might have been weak, but his heart refused to let Solara face danger alone. Solara, too, had changed. She walked beside him openly now, no longer hiding their friendship. She asked him about his people, their struggles, and their hopes. James spoke of Earth, its storms, its oceans, its small towns, and the way humans fought through hardship with stubborn courage. Solara listened with bright eyes, as if she found strength in every word. But James noticed something else. The more she smiled with him, the more her eyes grew troubled when she thought he wasn't looking. It was as if a storm brewed inside her, one she tried to hide. One evening, after classes, James found her sitting alone on the balcony of the library. The twin suns were setting, painting the sky in deep purple light. She did not hear him approach. "Solara?" he said softly. She turned, her silver hair glowing in the fading light. For a moment, she looked tired, almost fragile. "You should not have risked yourself that night," she whispered. "If something had happened to you." James sat beside her. "I made a choice and I'd make it again. You're not just a princess to me, Solara. You're my friend." Her lips curved into a faint smile, but her eyes glistened. "Do you know what it means, James, to be born into royalty? People think it is only glory, but it is a chain as heavy as iron. Every step I take, every word I say, it is judged, watched, controlled. Even my future is already decided. Who I will marry, what I will do, how I will rule. There is no freedom for me." James felt his chest tighten. He had always seen her as strong, untouchable. Now he saw the loneliness beneath her crown. "You're right," he said softly. "I don't understand what it means to be royalty. But I do know what it means to feel trapped, back on Earth. I thought I would never escape my small town, never see the stars. People told me my dreams were too big, but I kept hoping. And now I'm here. Maybe freedom comes when we fight for it, even if the world says we can't." Solara looked at him as if seeing him for the first time. Her hand trembled slightly as she reached toward his. For a moment, their fingers touched. It was brief, but it felt like a spark of something deeper. Before either of them could speak, a sound broke the silence. A faint hum. A shadow moving across the balcony wall. James reacted first. He pulled Solara back just as a small drone darted, past its red lens glowing. It vanished into the night sky before they could stop it. Solara's face went pale. "They are watching me." "Who?" James asked, his heart pounding. She shook her head. "I do not know." But if they used a spy drone inside the academy grounds, it means danger is closer than I thought. From that night onward, Solara was never left unguarded. Her royal protectors shadowed her steps. But even with them near, James remained at her side. He knew he was no soldier, no warrior. Yet something in his heart told him that the threats around her would not stop, and that somehow he would play a part in what was coming. One morning, as classes ended, Solara approached James in the courtyard. She dismissed her guards with a single glance, then leaned closer. "James," she whispered, "there are things I must tell you. Secrets my people would never share with outsiders. But you are not just an outsider anymore. You have risked your life for me. I trust you." James felt a weight settle over him. Whatever she was about to reveal, it would not be small. It would change everything. Solara took a deep breath, her silver eyes glowing faintly in the sun. "There is a war brewing in the Empire," she said, "and I fear I am at the center of it." James's heart sank. He had come to Asteris to study, to learn. But now he realized he had stepped into something far greater, a storm that could shake empires, and in the middle of it stood the princess he had promised to protect. The words echoed in James's mind long after Solara spoke them. A war is brewing, and I am at the center of it. He sat with her on the balcony that evening, the stars burning brightly above. The academy's lights shimmered in the distance, but around them the night was heavy, almost watchful. "Solara," James whispered. "What do you mean? Why would anyone want to start a war because of you?" She closed her eyes for a moment, gathering her thoughts. When she opened them again, there was no trace of the gentle student he had grown close to. Instead, her gaze carried the weight of a future ruler. "My mother, the Empress, rules with peace," Solara explained. "She believes in uniting the worlds of our empire through kindness and trust. But not everyone agrees. Some believe strength is the only way to rule. They see me, the daughter of peace, as a weakness. To them I am a symbol that must be removed." James felt a chill run through him. The cloaked figures in the garden, the drone, everything began to make sense. "They're trying to scare you," James said. "Or worse, take you away." Solara nodded slowly. "Yes. If they succeed, the Empire will fall into chaos. The war they dream of will come true." For a long moment, James said nothing. He was just a human student, far from home, untrained and unarmed. What place did he have in a struggle that could decide the fate of an empire? But then he remembered the way Solara's hand had trembled when she spoke of her chains. He remembered her eyes when she told him he was different, that he saw her as more than a crown. He could not walk away. "Solara," he said firmly, "you won't face this alone. Not while I'm here." Her lips parted in surprise. "James, you do not understand the danger. These are not bullies in the courtyard. These are powerful men and women who command armies. If they see you standing with me, they will see you as a threat." "Then let them," James replied. "I didn't come here to be a soldier, but I won't stand by while you're hunted. If I can't fight their battles, I'll fight beside you in whatever way I can." For the first time that evening, Solara smiled, a smile that carried both sorrow and warmth. "You are either very brave, James, or very foolish." "Maybe both," he said softly. Days passed, and the academy's air grew tense. Strange things kept happening. Rumors of accidents, whispers of betrayal. Guards were doubled around Solara, yet James always found a way to walk beside her. He noticed how the nobles looked at him now, not with mockery, but with something darker: resentment. One afternoon during combat training, the tension boiled over. Students from different worlds gathered in the arena to practice dueling. James had never been good at it. His body was slower, weaker compared to the tall, graceful Asterians. When his turn came, his opponent was none other than the same noble who had once warned him to know his place. The duel began, and the alien, attacked with skill and speed James could barely follow. Wooden training blades clashed, sparks flying from their energy fields. James stumbled back, sweat dripping down his face. He knew he couldn't win, but then he heard the noble whisper between strikes. Stay away from the princess, human. Or, next time it won't be a wooden blade. Rage flared in James's chest. He tightened his grip and blocked another strike. He couldn't match strength, but he could endure. Again and again he refused to fall. His body ached, but he stayed, on his feet glaring into the noble's silver eyes. Finally, the instructor ended the match. James was bruised, exhausted and humiliated, but still standing. And when he glanced at the stands, he saw Solara watching him. Her eyes shone with something more powerful than pity. Pride. Later, as they walked together, Solara touched his arm gently. You fought with more courage than anyone else in that arena. Do not think weakness means defeat. James felt his throat tighten at her words. He realized then that courage was not about winning. It was about refusing to give up. That night, as he lay awake in his small room, James thought about his family on Earth. His mother's smile, his father's rough hands. They had sent him here to learn, to represent humanity. But now he was part of something far bigger. He was not only the human student anymore. He was the friend of a princess standing at the edge of war. And as the stars glowed beyond his window, James whispered a promise to himself. No matter what happens, I will protect her. He did not know then how soon that promise would be tested, or how deeply it would change both their lives. The academy had always been a place of shining light. Tall crystal towers glowed under twin suns, and the air was filled with the hum of learning. But on one fateful night, all of that peace shattered. James had stayed late in the library, copying notes on alien politics. The halls were quiet, almost too quiet. As he packed his things, a strange vibration shook the floor beneath his feet. At first, he thought it was only the wind. But then the alarms began to howl. A voice echoed through the academy. Warning. Intruders detected. All students remain in their quarters. James's blood ran cold. He did not need to guess who the intruders were. His first thought was not of himself, but of Solara. He ran through the glowing halls, his footsteps echoing with urgency. Students rushed in the opposite direction, seeking safety, but James pushed forward. He knew the princess's chamber was on the far side of the academy, guarded by elite protectors. Yet deep in his heart, he feared that even guards would not be enough. The smell of smoke filled the air as he turned a corner. The academy's great doors had been blasted open. Cloaked figures stormed inside, their weapons glowing with deadly energy. Guards clashed with them, the sound of steel and light filling the night. James had always lived an ordinary life. He was a boy from a small town raised by a hard-working mother and a father who fixed old machines in a garage. Nothing about him seemed special. He went to school, helped his family, and dreamed of something more whenever he looked at the night sky. For years he wondered what lay beyond the stars, if anyone out there would ever care to know about humans. Then one day, his life changed. The Galactic Exchange Program announced that a single human student would be chosen to study at the Imperial Academy of Asteris. It was the most prestigious academy in the known galaxy, a place where the brightest minds of hundreds of alien worlds studied. For humanity, still new to interstellar relations, this was history. Only one person could go. James never believed it would be him. He had no famous family, no powerful background, and no long list of awards. He only had determination, kindness, and a curiosity that never died. But when the results were announced, his name appeared. His mother cried with joy, and his father hugged him tighter than ever before. Suddenly, James was no longer just a boy from Earth. He was Earth's representative. The journey to Asteris was overwhelming. He traveled on a starship larger than any city he had ever seen. The halls were filled with alien voices, creatures of every shape and color. Some looked at him with curiosity, others with doubt, and a few with open disdain. Humans were young, in the galactic community, fragile, weak, untested. When James finally reached the academy, it felt like stepping into a dream. Towers of crystal reached into the sky, glowing softly under twin suns. Silver walkways floated above shimmering lakes. Students wore robes of deep colors, each symbol marking their world and heritage. James, in his plain uniform, felt out of place. Whispers followed him everywhere. Is that the human? He looked so small, fragile, like glass. How can such a creature learn here? James pretended not to hear, but the words cut deep. He walked with his head high, though his heart ached. He told himself that he was not here to impress them, but to learn, to prove that humanity belonged among the stars. It was during those first days that he noticed her, Princess Solara of Asteris. She was the heir to the empire, daughter of the empress and perhaps the most admired student in the academy. Her hair was pale and shining, almost like silver threads flowing down her back. Her eyes were bright, filled with intelligence and quiet strength. Everywhere she went, people bowed, whispered, and followed her presence with awe. But Solara herself seemed alone. Though surrounded by admirers, her smile was often distant, her gaze lost in thought. James caught her watching him more than once, not with cruelty or amusement like the others, but with curiosity. She studied him quietly, as if searching for something no one else could see. One evening, after a long day of lectures, James found himself sitting alone in the great library. Rows upon rows of glowing tablets lined the walls, each filled with the history of empires older than Earth itself. He sat at a corner, reading slowly, struggling with alien symbols that twisted his eyes. Then he heard a voice. "You read slower than most," Solara said gently. James looked up, startled. The princess herself stood beside his table. She carried no guards, no attendants, just a soft expression that seemed almost kind. "Yes," James admitted, embarrassed. "I'm still learning. Human eyes aren't made for these texts." Solara tilted her head. "And yet you try. Most would have given up." James smiled faintly. "On Earth, if you want something, you don't give up. Even if it's hard, you keep going." For the first time, Solara's lips curved into a true smile. Not the polite mask she wore in public, but something warmer. From that night on, the whispers in the academy did not matter as much. Though the alien students still doubted him, James began to feel less alone. The princess spoke to him now, and then sometimes asking questions, sometimes simply listening. He did not know why she cared, but he was grateful. He had come to Asteris as an outsider. But in the quiet gaze of the princess, he felt a strange spark, like his journey was only beginning. James thought he had come to the stars to learn. He did not know that soon, his courage would be tested and his choices would change not only his life, but the fate of the princess herself. Days turned into weeks, and James slowly adjusted to life at the Imperial Academy. Every morning he walked through the shining crystal halls carrying his datapad while whispers followed him. Some students mocked him for his clumsy speech or his slow reading. Others ignored him completely. But not Solara. The princess often found reasons to speak to him. Sometimes it was a question about human history, sometimes a quiet conversation about her people's traditions. James began to notice that she always carried a heaviness in her eyes, a burden she never spoke about. She was admired by everyone, yet truly close to no one. To James, she was not just a princess. She was a person, a girl who laughed softly when he told her about Earth's strange animals, who listened carefully when he spoke about his mother's cooking and the smell of rain on his hometown streets. For Solara, it was the first time someone saw her not as royalty but simply as herself. Their growing friendship did not go unnoticed. In the academy courtyard, James sometimes caught sharp looks from Solara's noble classmates. They did not, like a human standing beside their princess. One afternoon, as James left the library, a tall Asterian student blocked his path. His silver eyes glowed faintly, and his robe carried the crest of one of the noble houses. "You forget your place, human," the student said coldly. "The princess is not for the likes of you. Stay away." James's heart pounded, but he refused to lower his gaze. She speaks to me because she chooses to, not because I ask her to. The alien's lips curled in disdain. Fragile creature. Do not mistake her kindness for friendship. One day you may push too far, and then you will break. The words stayed with James long after the student left. He wondered if maybe they were right. What future could a simple human boy have with a princess of an empire? But the next evening, Solara found him sitting alone near the academy's glowing fountains. "You seem troubled," she said softly. James hesitated, then told her what the noble had said. To his surprise, Solara's eyes darkened with anger. "They think because I am a princess they can decide who I may or may not speak to," she said firmly. "But I am not a jewel to be guarded. I choose my own company, James, and I choose to be your friend." Her words gave him strength, though he noticed the shadows in her voice. It was clear she had spent much of her life being told what she could and could not do. That night, James made a quiet promise to himself. He would never treat her like a symbol or a crown. He would stand by her simply as a friend, no matter the cost, but danger was already moving in the background. Unknown to James, the academy was not as safe as it seemed. Whispers of unrest stirred within the Asterian Empire. Some factions opposed the Empress, and some believed the princess was a weakness that could be used against her. To them, Solara was not just a student, she was a target. One evening, when James returned late from his studies, he passed through the garden behind the academy. The twin moons cast silver light over the flowers. That was when he saw her, Solara, cornered by two cloaked figures. Her voice was steady, but her eyes betrayed fear. "You should not be here," she told them. The taller figure hissed, "You are too trusting, princess. One day your kindness will destroy you. Come with us quietly and no harm will come." James froze. His heart thundered in his chest. He was only human. Weak compared to Asterians. What could he do? But then he remembered his promise. Before fear could stop him, James ran forward. "Leave her alone," he shouted, grabbing a broken branch from the garden's edge. The cloaked figures turned, surprised to see a human standing between them and the princess. Their laughter was cruel. "A human?" one sneered. "How pitiful. You think you can protect her?" James's hands shook, but he stood firm. "I don't care who you are. If you want her, you'll have to go through me." For a moment, silence filled the garden. Then the taller alien stepped closer, raising a hand that glowed faintly with energy. James knew he was about to be struck down. But before the blow landed, Solara cried out. "Stop!" Her voice carried a power James had never heard before, sharp, commanding, filled with royal authority. The cloaked figures hesitated, then melted back into the shadows, vanishing into the night. James dropped the branch, his knees weak with relief. Solara rushed to him, her eyes wide. "James, why did you do that? You could have been killed." He looked at her, his chest still heaving. Because no one should ever face fear alone, not even a princess. For a long moment, Solara said nothing. Then, to James's shock, she reached out and took his hand. "You are not like the others," she whispered. "Perhaps you see me more clearly than anyone ever has." And in that quiet garden, under the twin moons of Asteris, James realized something. He had not only found a friend, he had found someone worth protecting, even if it meant standing against the galaxy itself. After the night in the garden, James's life at the academy was never the same. The whispers about him grew louder. Some students mocked him, calling him the princess's pet human. Others looked at him with suspicion, wondering why Solara, the future empress, would choose to spend her time with someone so ordinary.